Kambale, I'll start off with you. What do you think needs to be done for a long-term solution in this DR crisis? Your winding up comment.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of the DRC, I think I mentioned before, and this I appreciate Professor Buchanan sharing the point of dialogue. And I think for peace and stability in the Great Lakes region, it has to start with dialogue inside of Rwanda. He has hinted at FDLR. FDLR are Rwandans who are in the DRC. They should go home. They should participate in the political process in Rwanda, and there should be some form of dialogue there. The second thing that should happen to bring peace and stability in the region is the question of political prisoners in Rwanda. For example, Paul Rusesabagina, who is in Rwanda right now, who was actually kidnapped and is a prisoner there. The instability within Rwanda of political prisoners, of journalists who are being arrested, of Rwandan Hutus who are in the Congolese forest who need to go home, can only happen there. So if the FDLR are able to return home, Congo can deal with its problems. And specifically for the M23, as we discussed, they have to put down the guns. The exclusion was direct. As soon as they picked up the gun, you can negotiate with someone who have the guns at the table. They need to put down the guns and come to the table. And the external support of the rebel groups in the Congo needs to stop because it only exacerbates the solution. So when we look at all those things, dialogue in Rwanda, Rwandan refugees returning in Rwanda, making sure that political prisoners in Rwanda, such as Paul Rusesabagina and others, are free and can participate in the political process in Rwanda. Pressure on the M23 to return to the dialogue by stopping actually the support of external forces. Those elements will bring about regional peace for the decades to come.
All right, Professor Buchanan, your thoughts?
Thank you so much. And I appreciate what my brother is talking about. I think dialogue is the most key we need always to put together. But let me remind him that Paul Rusesabagina was not kidnapped. Paul Rusesabagina accepted himself what he committed. Almost this, out of the 13 crime has committed, almost 67 has accepted to support, to sponsor even that kind of people who are doing with, including all those Sankaras. So I think when it comes to those, Hutus you are referring to, I think Rwanda has always fight for that to make sure that anyone who is in Rwanda should return. You have so many cases, people who come from the FDLR who really has put the guns and come back. So I don't think if we are talking about dialogue, we are going to accept that Rwandese people to accept FDLR with the guns and supporting with the backing with those countries we are talking about to come to Rwanda. I think what you have to do, the DRC government must make sure that it demoralize and destabilize those kind of things which comes to FDLR and ask them to put the gun down. And at the same time, those who committed the genocide must make sure they go by sure to the justice. Otherwise, every Munyarwanda without any discrimination, ethnicity or whatever, we don't count this kind of ethnicity in Rwanda. We consider as every Munyarwanda who really committed to support and to come and build this nation. But I support that the dialogue between DRC with its people and at the same time to dialogue when it comes to anti-Rwanda demonstration must stop. And this, because it's always violated the violence, then this kind of M23 must also sit with DRC people, the government to sit and the dialogue and come out to the consensus of coming to the peace. Otherwise, without dialogue, without that kind of diplomatic dialogue, then we are not talking anything about that.
All right, Daniel, very briefly, I want to hear your view on what you think needs to be done for a long-term solution, very briefly.
I personally don't think it's just a Rwanda DRC thing. I think it has to be a regional thing, given the historic component of it. Uganda, Rwanda, Burundi, and DRC all need to come together and actually find a long-lasting solution to this. I do think a big part of it will be the dialogue processes in DRC that are unfolding now are going to be a huge step for that. I think as you can start getting more and more groups demobilized, which, the Congo government has done a new approach to it. There is a little bit of enthusiasm towards this new approach to it. And I think once you can start disarming more and more groups, you can start looking at the more core groups that are contributing to insecurity in the region. You also, at the same time, you also can't look at, well, let's fight insecurity, but you also have governments that are still in the process of rapprochement efforts, such as Rwanda and Burundi, Rwanda and Uganda, DRC and the rest. I think there needs to be a two-stage thing where the governments need to come together and sort their issues out through a dialogue process mediated by either the EAC or the African Union. And then you also have to have a separate component about the armed groups, because at the end of the day, the armed groups and their actions are contributing to the tensions that you see between the countries. So I don't think you can just say, well, DRC and Rwanda need to sort each other's out alone. It needs to be a group effort. And I think the Nairobi talks at present are promising. And I think that, if the tensions between DRC and Rwanda can be addressed, the talks at present do have some sort of opportunity for what we're looking for in terms of stability in the region.